Prepare to be amazed as two men, legally classified as vintage, compete to recall pop culture nonsense from a time when parents smoked in grocery stores and Ronald McDonald roamed free, judged and scored by artificial intelligence. Chris and Jeff sift through the glorious wreckage of a gleefully neglected childhood, hoping to find meaning. Nice pull, because if we don't remember this crap, you know damn well someone's gonna try and reboot it and make it way worse.
Episode 67, Jeff. Here we are. Again, we always... Maybe at some point we'll stop being so incredulous that we're like, wow, we're cranking out another episode, right? It's almost like you can't believe it. Hey, we can't believe it. But anyway, yes, episode 67. I think we kind of stopped short a little bit. And since I'm still kind of hungry and thinking about food, I think there's a few more topics that we kind of left sort of a cliffhanger for the last episode 66. But with that in mind, let's get right to it. How did episode 66 and what's that scoreboard looking like?
Yes, indeed. Let's go ahead and open up that liquor cabinet and take a look at what happened in the last episode and who, in fact, won the last episode of Nice Poll with the highest score. Again, just as a reminder to everybody, if you ever want to check out the score from the previous episode, all you have to do is just go to nicepollpod.com, go to the scoreboard button up there at the top, and click on it. By gosh, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be able to scroll through all of the scores from the last, 12 or 13 or so episodes. And really, that's something that'll put you straight to sleep. If you don't like Ambien, the effects of it, or the hot tea, the valerian root, and having then to pee 7 times that night, like myself, you might want to just try this, right? Print it out and just read through it or whatever. Let's start with the top poll for Chris. Chris, your top poll was, and by the way, by God, you deserve a lot of credit for this. Your top poll was actually having memorized the opening to the show 1 Adam 12. Chris did the entire exchange, right? Where, what is it, Chris? Police dispatch is calling out to 1 Adam 12 every single episode, the very beginning of it. What do they say, Chris?
1 Adam 12, 1 Adam 12, 211 in progress, 1 Adam 12, 1 Adam 12, handle code 3. Okay.
And later on, because we didn't have the internet back then, Chris, did you ever look up what a 211 was to know what in fact was in progress?
Armed robbery.
Okay, armed robbery. Chris, what is code 3? How do you handle
that
a code 3?
That part I didn't look at, that part wasn't important, but a 211. Yeah. Hey,
I'm going to challenge the listeners because obviously anyone can Google it. I get that. But I'm going to challenge the listeners to write us or text us or communicate with us. You can do that on the website.
On the blog.
You can contact us directly. You can do that on the blog. And by the way, for those of you that don't know it, we have added a blog to the Nice Poll website. Chris is in charge of that, and these are really fun, you guys. Chris is doing just these really hilarious blog entries on all the pop culture stuff. A lot of the stuff that we don't actually mention on the show, or maybe we did mention, but we didn't go far enough, right, Chris? And by God, right. Chris won't stand for us not going far enough.
Show's long enough as it is. So yeah,
that's right.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's right. So I challenge the audience to find out what handling a code 3 means. And if you already knew it without Googling, please tell us so we can give you some points. All right, cool. And then Chris, what was my biggest poll? As I looked through this, my biggest poll was somehow piecing together just the weirdness of the fact that back in the 70s and 80s, restaurants that were in Southern California, Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor, Shakey's Pizza Place, and Straw Hat, they all had this obsession with those late 20s, early 30s ragtime hats that you would
Mm,
wear. Come on, my
mm.
baby, come on, my la la da da la 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 sal, right? And I think they were always styrofoam, and we talked about that, right?
Mhm. Right.
Some dude must have just had again, we always talk about this, a giant warehouse of fucking styrofoam ragtime hats, and it was his job to just
Uh-huh.
like talk people into using this for the wait staff. I don't know. Bottom
Yes.
line, nice poll against nice poll. Who actually won the last episode? Let's go ahead and see what the scoreboard says. And for those of you that might be listening and not watching this, Chris, once again, has pulled ahead. And damn it, he has, what do they call that, Chris? When the lead, no, the gap between
I picked up a
the
game. Yeah,
picked up a
yeah,
game. That's what they
yeah,
say in the sports world, you guys.
right.
So now, Chris, again, go back into your sports commentator mode. Pretend
Uh-huh.
that I'm a sports team and you're a sports team, and now the fans want to know what is this going to do to the overall standings. Use sports talk. Yeah,
Well, it just has a comfortable lead right now, but there's still a lot of games left to be played in the season, so, we'll just, but, Jeff's got a lot of ground to make up, and we'll see if he can close that gap. But right now, I'm feeling good, and, I just wanna thank Jack Webb and, Kent McCord, and, even now I'm blanking on Kent McCord's partner's name. See,
Martin Milner.
Martin Milner. Damn it, I knew it was
See
alliterative. See, now I should
now,
lose points for that. I
that's
should
right. I was
lose
going to
points for
say
that.
now I should get that poll because you didn't know who he was sitting next to. You got two shows
Uh-huh.
in there, right? You did
Uh-huh.
Dragnet and One Adam 12
Well,
in
Jack
one
Webb
mention.
produced, I think those were all, like, under the same banner, kinda like he was like or like Dick Wolf that does all these crime shows now. He was like the early days of Dragnet, Emergency, Adam
Jack
12.
Webb produced.
Those are all those Jack Webb things. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Oh, I
Go
didn't know
back
Jack Webb was also a producer. I thought he
there.
was just
Oh, no, he wasn't
the
just a badass. Yeah,
yeah,
you know?
okay,
Yeah,
I'll be
and
damned.
they all had this same little kicker at the end of the show where they would, like, be like it was like a guy with a hammer and, like, a big stamp and go like,
Tong,
"Clang," and then, like, pull it back. It
tong.
was like Web Productions or something. Yeah, check it out. Maybe that we can find
Okay,
that on YouTube.
I could have sworn now, Chris, we are going down a weird rabbit hole,
I
but
know, I gotta stop. I gotta stop.
no, 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 no. My memory is a little different. I remember, yes, the very famous hammer hitting the
Mhm.
chisel and that clang,
Yep,
clang. And again, this would be the little clip that would happen after
yep,
each show
at
to
the
tell you
end.
who
Yeah,
produced
at
it.
the end. Last
And
scene.
when the hand pulled away, I just don't remember it saying web. I thought it was like Roman numerals or something like that. So I
Something like
guess
we'll have to
I've twisted my memory. Now we're
well,
gonna have to take a look at that so that we can put that to bed.
definitely, definitely.
All right.
Is it right, right. Well,
Well, all right. So again, guys, if you want to check out the score and the scoreboard, the current standings, which I don't want to talk about because I'm now feeling actually depressed, go to nicepolpod.com. Well, Chris, before we get into what is on the docket for today, or what is
mhm.
it called, Chris? The blotter? Is that the cop term? The blotter, the police blotter?
Something like that, yeah.
I thought that was the term for like the things you got to do today or the
Right.
people to look out for. I don't know. Again,
Something like
we
that.
got to do our research. Okay. I did want to give one huge shout out once again to the previous episode where we had as a guest,
Ah,
speaking of the police, right? Larry Wilcox of Chips. Just again, wanted to thank him for answering a few questions that we were dying to know the answers to and really kind of enlightening us in a few areas there. So,
mm,
for those of you that may have just started on this episode and you don't know what we're talking about, go back to the previous episode because Larry was pretty funny. We
uh,
got some interesting insight there, didn't we?
Officer John Baker himself, alluding to and I still haven't done it. I meant to go look. I wanna play detective on my own and find out what guest stars, maybe were not quite exactly, let's just say, up to the task of being on the show. Um, Officer John Baker admitting maybe the most self-deprecating, emasculating detail of them all that at times they weren't actually riding motorcycles, they were getting pulled on a little trailer and
That's
people
right.
so they could catch the dialogue and then
Yeah.
people were driving by in and probably in like, some sort of like I don't know, Mercury Bobcat or some car like that, making fun of them, going, "Ah, you're not really," but that was hilarious. So that's
Yeah.
the kind of insight we need a little bit more from these surprise guests. But yes, shout out, props to Larry Wilcox. Too bad Larry. Maybe there should have been a crossover, right, where there was a scene of the crime where maybe Adam 12 and John and Punch like arrived at the same time. Why didn't they ever do that? Would have been awesome.
Uh, because they were separated by about 12 years of technology, I
Okay, they
think.
could have brought them
Oh,
back.
okay.
So with a special guest star. I
That would have
don't
been
know.
Larry Wilcox finally getting a good line, which would have been, "Why are you guys driving that piece of shit?" Right? Because it would have been it would have been some Plymouth Valiant from, like, 1971 or '66 or something. I
And then
should laugh. My car
right.
was a Plymouth Valiant that I drove around when I was a kid, but, um,
They but they probably
yeah,
had the same technology. They were probably getting pulled on a trailer too, right? They weren't really
yeah.
driving that car. They were like, "So, Reed, what do you wanna have for lunch?" "I don't know, McCoy." I mean, something like that.
Which always made me wonder, how many times do you think in real life with those crappy cars from the '60s, right? Because wasn't Adam 12 really filmed in the '60s, Chris?
I wanna say late '60s, early '70s. I don't think there
Okay,
was that much of a gap, but,
okay.
we'll have to again, if we ever did
All right.
research, maybe one of these days we'll do some research before we just start talking.
Yeah. Well, I get the feeling that if Kent McCord's character saw the Chips motorcycles, they would go, "Holy shit, this must be the year 2070, right?" Compared to those
Can those
totally
fly?
crappy motors can those fly like Megaforce?
Can
You
we
ever
have
see that movie Megaforce?
Yes, Barry
Oh
Bostwick.
my god.
Can we
Oh,
have a
wow.
can we have a
Nice.
yeah, can we have, like, a food pill on the way, right? So something like
Right,
all those things. Future
right.
boy.
Well, Future
Excellent.
Boy. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
very good. Buckaroo
yeah,
Banzai reference. Well done.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you,
nice.
thank you.
That's right, Big Boutte. Um,
Uh-huh,
Larry, I wanna give him one last little shout out too, because
mhm,
speaking of being self-deprecating, I love the fact that he openly just sort of, conceded to the fact that, "Hey, man, to be honest, John Baker was the world's most boring character. As an actor, it was really hard to try to breathe life into it," and I just thought that was such a funny thing to say. I mean, he's right. I mean, nothing against him at all, but it's just, yeah, he's literally the guy on the sidelines watching Eric Estrada disco dance or do whatever he's doing to
right,
ride that big
like
stardom wave.
right, yeah, hoping he can get, like, the rejects or something like that, or was the
Right,
casting was the
right,
casting notice like, John Baker, parentheses, second banana. You're gonna say, "Let's
right.
go," "Sure," and "Sounds good" a lot, okay? I mean, those are your 3 lines of dialogue. Yeah, that's like, "All right."
And and
N
and and you say that he might have been waiting around for Ponch's,
Rejects.
throwaways or
Mhm.
cast-offs, but
Discards.
I get the sense that the John Baker character wouldn't have done that. He would have just, at the bar ordered milk and then, gone home early because they had a big day the next day. That that's who I
He's what one of the rejects is trying to engage him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm watching the game." He'd be like, it's because it's a tie score in the bottom of the
Yeah,
7th inning, and he would be like, "Yeah,
right,
poor John."
right. Yeah, exactly. Well, gosh, there you go. So, Chris, let's move forward because that's the only
Yes.
way we can go at this point. What's on the, docket for today?
A lot of the categories we talk about, one of them is always, like, food and snacks and places we went, but we haven't we took a bit of a deep dive, but we really kinda stopped at, like, pizza and Pizza Hut and Straw Hat versus Shakey's and uh, obviously, Beef and Bun, which only really means something to anybody who grew up in San Carlos or actually lives there now. But we didn't go out to dinner, at least in my family. I'm guessing in yours too. We didn't go out to dinner because it was easier. It was like, hey, we're gonna go out to dinner on Friday night. Hey, it's a couple times, it's a thing, and I think and there were the places that we went, whether it was breakfast, whether it was going to some sort of other, restaurant that was a little bit maybe had some sort of, I would say theme, but had some sort of personality to it or culture, or I guess it was maybe that is a theme. But,
Right.
so some of the restaurants that we had, so I wanted to touch on those because I think they just when you think back because here it is all these years later and you're remembering these restaurants. You don't really remember necessarily maybe because of the food, but just the experience and what and literally the places you went to. Um, like, let's say first of all, like, again, they were all kind of in these categories, and it wasn't like Italian, Chinese, Mexican. They were just in these other sort of categories. Like, let's say we had some breakfast options, right? Again, Denny's, Marie Callender, Coco's, these places that you went out to for breakfast. You remember Denny's? Pre-Denny's? Do you remember what Denny's evolved from? Does that sound familiar to you at all?
Back in the day, and if there are younger folks listening, you will be blown away. It used to be called, well, and again, I'm not even sure Denny's is the same company. They might have bought it out and taken over. And so I guess, I guess we should excuse temporarily. We can until we know more. We will excuse Denny's from any sort of yeah, attachment to this. But the restaurant back then, the restaurant chain, which was very popular, was called Sambo's. Sambos. And you're thinking, oh, Sambo's. Maybe that's a cute nickname for the founder's Grandpa Sam. No, no, that is not it. No, that is not it at all. You know how I know that wasn't it? Because they made it really clear with their like their what was it? Their what would you call it? Their logo, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, and the
Eh,
way that they decorated the menu and all that stuff,
uh-huh,
as I
uh-huh.
recall. By the way, and again, these are alleged allegations, but this was not racially sensitive,
Oh.
to put it mildly. I think at a certain point they did start to get some heat about the ridiculousness of
Mhm,
this name because, as Chris pointed out, it has a literary connection.
mhm.
There is a book, of course it still exists, called, get this, Little Black Sambo, right? And in the story, he's able to escape a tiger by running around a tree and having the tiger chase him so many times and so fast that my recollection is the tiger turned into butter, I think was the strange tale of Little Black Sambo.
Finally, somebody said, "This is really culturally insensitive, but to have a restaurant chain, one book would have been one thing, but to have a restaurant chain with these signs, again, the same size as the Denny's signs became, and the Denny's signs aren't today, 50 feet up in the air, 40 feet up in the air, it's amazing to me, and right about the time that time, I can remember. And Jeff, you probably can too, even though, again, pre-VHS and pre-streaming and cable and all this kind of stuff. And Disney, remember when Disney would even have their classic films, because again, this film was even older than us, right? And they would, but I think it was like every 7 years, Disney would bring Cinderella or one of those other, one of the uh, other sort of Peter Pan, or they bring it out to the theaters for like a limited run, right? Because you couldn't
Right,
watch it any other way.
right.
And Disney's The Song of the South, which is the only Disney. I think there are copies out there on, like, eBay and stuff like that. You cannot find The Song of the South, which again had very similar representations, and in retrospect, I think I don't even wanna mention them because, again, they're more offensive than than, uh, than Sambo. But it was just like, because again, it's a story, Civil War era story, and slaves and the kindly slave, but the family owned. And then it was also one of the first Disney films, right, that mixed live action and animation.
I think it's not that we really need to go into too much detail here other than a classic example of the 70s, right? Just culturally insensitive, people just going about their business, not even realizing how insensitive it was. And
Mhm,
that's the way it was, blah, 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 whatever, no excuse. But it's interesting too, because now that I think of it, Sambo's, yes, the name, you couldn't help but think of that story of,
mhm,
like you said, the really inappropriate kind of, little black Sambo story. But as I recall, the actual um uh gosh darn it, the actual artwork that they used
mhm,
for their logo was not someone who was black. It was almost like a Johnny Quest Haji character that
sure.
had a turban and
Ooh,
was
Haji,
either
nice pull.
Asian or Indian, one of
Mhm,
the two, and that was the look. And then they finally got rid of that character, and then they just had the tiger, and then I
mhm.
think they eventually just got rid of the tiger and then it just became Denny's. Like you said, there was an evolution away from that, but a lot of people, and rightly so, said regardless of what you're trying to show on your signs and your menu,
Mhm.
this is basically the name from this really, effed up book, right?
Right, but they all had kind of that, and again, where we talked about there wasn't necessarily, like, themes, but they did have a hook or a cultural kind of thing, like, um, if you went to okay, let's say Bob's Big Boy, and what was Bob and I think even now, I think although I don't think it took because I think people didn't really care, like Bob's Big Boy, which everybody knows from Bob, the big statue of Bob holding the giant hamburger. Bob Bob in his overalls, those overalls came from the husky department, right? Because they were Bob was a big boy. Okay. And although I never even know, it's like, well, is he Bob or is he's Bob's big boy? Is he Bob Jr.? Is Bob like the owner? Right. But Bob's big boy had that sort of that hook of yes, your big burger with your fries and your salad, and then it had a comic book. I don't know if you remember, it was just like a free sort of with Bob and his adventures. He wasn't a superhero, but he was still worthy of a comic book. But that was sort of the hook, the family hook. Howard Johnson's, which I know was sort of affiliated with hotels or motels, but they had that same sort of family dinerish kind of stuff, but they were known for their ice cream. And then you had A&W root beer, which was known for what? The root beer floats. All
Right.
essentially the same food, but I guess they
Yeah.
were smart because even then looking at what can we do? What can we do to differentiate ourselves? And I think as a family sort of thing, like that was sort of like, again, it's like, ooh, what do we, ooh, do we want Bob's? And Bob had a big menu. Do we want Howard Johnson's because we want ice cream or the A&W root beer? And I think if I remember correctly, you could take home even like a gallon of root beer and stuff like that from
Wow.
A&W.
Like
All
a
gr
like a little a little pony keg.
right,
Well,
like a growler of root beer,
we
basically.
a growler of root beer.
It's a lot of root
We have
beer.
to we have to take these apart one at a
Mhm.
time, obviously, because the show dictates that we do that.
Right.
For those of you listening in, if you're listening carefully, do you notice that Chris can no longer control his Mike Douglas ooze?
Merv
He
Griffin.
now says it. He now says it under his breath. About 5 or 6 episodes ago, he was
Ooh.
making a note of the fact that Mike Douglas would always go
Merv
ooh,
Griffin! Stop saying Mike Douglas.
and I
Merv
think it's the
Griffin.
Mike Douglas aspect that really
No,
gets me.
it's stop. It's
Oh,
Merv.
Merv
Okay?
Griffin. Sorry,
You're
I keep thinking
you're
Mike Douglas.
you're 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 mixing up your middle-aged, white, like, short, stocky afternoon talk show hosts, but
Right,
yes, right.
right.
Yes, I can't. I
Anyway,
know they're coming out, they're seeping out of me, Jeff. The ooze are
anyway,
coming out of my pores.
John Davidson would oftentimes say, "Ooh," is my point.
God damn it, John Davidson. That's incredible.
Okay. Um, right, with Skip Stevens and Sarah Purcell and
No,
Byron Allen. Ha!
that's real people.
That's real
That's real
people. Dang
people.
it.
That's incredible was that's incredible was with, Kathy Lee Crosby, the one time, for whatever reason, TV Wonder Woman, pre-Linda
Yes.
Carter, and then there
Weird.
was another guy there t oh, Fran Tarkenton, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
Fran
that's where that
Tarkenton,
came
yep,
from.
and then Byron
Excellent.
Allen. Yes, of
Right,
course.
right.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad that I lost points by not knowing Merv Griffin and totally screwing up on the Real People, That's
John
Incredible
Davidson.
crossover.
I think
Yeah,
John Davidson made up for it.
I
Yeah,
should get some points for that.
he should.
Anyway, Merv Griffin would famously say, "Ooh," when he was really into something or
Impressed.
wanted to punctuate it.
Impressed.
Now Chris and Chris told me this off camera that he does it so much now that his poor wife, can you imagine, is now just like, dude, what in the hell? What is that? Why are you
Mm,
saying ooh? What is that? It's
mm,
gotta be just so bizarre. But then again, my poor wife married to me. I
mm.
mean, even weirder. So
Well,
yeah.
yes. Maybe well,
Okay.
I think we need to turn over an episode to them and just at
Oh
some
my
point.
God. Would that be incredible?
Oh,
That's
that's
incredible.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's
No, I
you know what
mean,
I mean?
we
And
we
let them just
yeah.
that somehow they can undo all the damage of 66 episodes
I I
in
also
one
think
full
that
swoop.
their episode would get so much of a bigger audience so
Mm,
quickly. They would
right.
probably just go absolutely into the stratosphere. just talking shit about us and then reminiscing about
Mhm.
their own experiences back then. Well,
Right.
Chris, Bob's Big Boy. I did want to mention that when you said the name and the fact that
Mhm.
it really didn't make a lot of sense, you're right. And I didn't even think about it until now. Obviously, they had the Big Boy hamburger, so I
Right.
guess you could say it's Bob's Big Boy hamburger. It's Bob's
Mhm.
Big Boy. But you're
Mhm.
right, that begs so many questions. Who was the big boy, right?
Right.
Was it a guy named Bob and that was his firstborn child and he referred to him as the
Right.
big boy? Or was Bob himself, to your point, a big boy? And was the statue outside, was that Bob? So many questions.
Was
Again,
that the big
this goes
boy?
back to Adam 12 Handle Code 3. I think if some
Mhm.
audience members could look into that, that would be amazing. But one thing I can tell you, Chris, is at least in most of the locations near our high school, that Bob's Big Boy statue was usually in trouble, wasn't he?
It was a target. It was a target, yes, for either being sort of
It wasn't even vandalism, it was out and
no,
out theft.
it was
Just
theft,
pure theft.
yes.
Yeah, right. It wasn't.
Probably a vandalism
Yeah,
component if there was, like, multiple charges, if you'd
yeah,
call one Adam 12, if you had, Rita Malloy go out there in the sense of, like,
yeah.
yeah, because it was vandalism, it was theft, maybe it was trespassing, right? You could probably get a few of them in there. That maybe that was the code 3. Maybe there was 3 things that they were charged with. But,
Right.
yeah, and very I think there was a certain segment of our school that, yeah, that it was kidnapped, Bob-napped a couple different times, and, eventually returned to its rightful owner because they would find it discarded somewhere near Cowles Mountain or something off Jackson Drive or somewhere, and because you take something like that, you don't bring it back, right?
No,
Because why would you unless you said,
you don't.
"Hey, man, I found
Yeah.
this. Look what I found." But, yeah, Bob
The
Bob was kidnapped several times.
And it led to higher and higher security measures, but apparently back in the day, all you needed was like Jeff Spicoli, your dad's,
Ultimate
TV
set of tools.
repairman kit,
Yeah.
an ultimate set of tools, and you could just, take off the bolt or the nut or whatever it was and
Mhm.
remove the entire Bob's Big Boy statue. And yeah, I mean, they would steal it, they would paint it weird colors
Dress it up and
and
stuff, yeah,
take pictures of it and dress it up and then, like you said,
right,
abandon it. Yes.
yeah.
And, I'm sure back then those things cost a pretty penny. I can
Oh,
only imagine
yeah,
that statue must have cost, nine or $10,000 by, 1980s standards. I can't even
mhm,
imagine what they would be worth
right,
today. But
right.
nowadays, if you can even find a Bob's Big Boy statue, you will notice that it is a permanent part of the foundation. Like,
It's going
there's no
nowhere,
effing way. You would have to get a giant saw to get that thing off. And even then,
right,
I don't know if you could do it,
and there's
right? It is,
cameras and everything
there's
else.
cameras. Yeah. And I think it has a glitter bomb inside and the fart spray. So if you do take it, and all the, yeah.
It's like those bank robbers, like the die packs, so if you were to try to move it, it would
Right.
explode on you and you'd be
Exactly.
nailed. Well, like, there's a Crack Shack, which restaurant near us,
A
and
what?
it's called Crack Shack, and it's actually there's one in Little Italy, there's one in
What?
Encinitas, I think
Okay.
great chicken, just like a chicken specialty, but sort of, but not like your regular, like, fried chicken, just highly recommend. Crack Shack, shout out to Crack Shack, maybe, hey, maybe you'll like to send us some Crack Shack merchandise, but
Because there's parts of Riverside County where I live where they have the same thing, except I don't think they're advertising as
they
as
don't have a
heavily.
big sign
No,
or
no.
like, but no, see, the Crack Shack, is my meandering story, has essentially, I don't even know, it's bigger than me because it's on a pedestal that rolls. It's like this 6 or 7-foot fiberglass rooster, and it's on wheels. So when they close the restaurant every night, there's no chance of that. That thing gets rolled inside and locked up because it would be prime vandalism, theft, or,
Yeah.
sort of
Are
defacing of this iconic fiberglass rooster.
you were saying earlier that when it was the 1980s or the 1970s and, "Hey, family, we're gonna all go out to dinner," it wasn't necessarily because, we don't wanna cook or whatever, it was just an announcement. It's like, "This is just the thing we're doing as a family, and we're going out together, right? And I think a lot of that had to do with, to be blunt, with the fact that you already had a slave in the house that automatically made all the meals, and it was usually mom. So from the dad's standpoint, it was like, hey, it's not that we don't want to make a meal, it's just we want to go someplace different. And the mom's thinking, dude, seriously? Like, yeah, let's go out. I would like to take a break just one effing day and go out, right? But for the dad who would announce it and organize it, it was always like, all right, everybody, we're going out.
Right, right.
Not
It's
because we're
like,
sick of making food, just because we're doing this.
or it's like, here's the worst part of it. It was just like, "Oh, we're giving mom the night off," right? But here's the
Giving
thing.
her the night off. Right.
So, but then what
That's
does
right.
everybody say? "Yay, dad!" Like, your dad is
And
getting
now
the
he's the
credit.
hero. Yeah.
Yes, dad is getting the
Yeah.
credit for taking everybody out rather than
Yeah.
mom getting any sort of
Yeah.
credit for the other 6 nights of the week. Like,
Chris,
"Mom,
when
thanks," you know?
when the warden reduces someone's sentence out of pity,
Uh-huh.
I think that's cause for celebration, right? Oh, what a great guy. You're giving her a break for one day, right? Awesome. No swinging a no swinging a sledgehammer on the freeway today for you. Let's give her a break. Well,
No,
anyway,
no, no, get off the chain gang. Yeah, that's right.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you, Chrissy Hine.
yes, or Sam Cooke.
All right.
That's
Oh,
right.
there you oh, of course, you got
Yeah,
the original. I did the
right,
other. All
that's
right.
fine.
The
That's fine.
AI overlord that does the score, it's not gonna catch those. That's too subtle. It doesn't
Bastard.
understand.
You bastard.
But I was gonna say about Howard Johnson's, by the way, I
Mhm,
used to travel back east once a year to visit
mhm,
my relatives, and that was a really fun trip, and we had all these fun times out there. But one of the things I would notice, I don't think it's the same way here in California, but on the East Coast and in the Midwest, Howard Johnson restaurants were oftentimes overlooking a road or a freeway. So there would
mhm.
be this bridge, like an overpass, right? But the
Okay.
entire bridge was a Howard Johnson. So try to imagine you
Oh,
look
oh,
up and instead of seeing people crossing the bridge or the walkway, it was a
uh-huh.
restaurant. It was a Howard Johnson's. And so you could presumably sit there, look out the window as you're eating your runny eggs and bacon bits or whatever they
Yeah,
serve there,
uh,
and look at traffic. Chris, imagine it, looking at cars while you eat, going underneath you, for God's sake. I mean, that was a thrill
ooh.
back then.
Dude,
Yeah.
were you subconsciously or maybe consciously hoping to see, like, an accident, a fender bender, or maybe
Subconsciously,
somebody
Chris,
get
you were
yes.
actively looking for it. No, not even subconscious. That's what you're
Hoping
hoping for.
hoping for, I don't know, Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane to pull somebody over, right? Or something, some sort of excitement. Because otherwise there's nothing really excitement about cars whizzing by. Or maybe you were counting punch bugs, right? It's like every time a Volkswagen Bug drove by, and because there had to be something. That's great. I can't believe you said that though, because the only Howard Johnson's I can really think about that sticks out in my mind was the one right there off of Waring Road, San Diegans, uh, overlooking what? The 8 freeway. So there you had to have seen some cool stuff there because you're talking about a
Oh,
freeway. It's
yeah.
not just a road
Sure.
where plenty because we
Yeah.
all saw stuff happen on the 8 in either direction.
We don't normally go into too much detail on growing up
Mhm.
here in our particular neighborhood, just
Not
for the
anymore.
sake of the audience that probably, you know,
Doesn't
isn't
care.
from here and it wouldn't care. But I will ask you a question, Chris, a trivia question for those of us who were little kids that were born in San Diego and actually grew up from the beginning. What, in the early days, back in the 60s, and I think up until the early 70s, what could you see on Interstate 8 as, let's say, you're heading west and it's on the north side of the freeway, right? Sure,
Mhm.
there was Jack Murphy Stadium eventually, but what did you
Right.
see over there that was kind of unusual?
I'm trying to think. That was I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not I probably don't you're stumping. I don't even know if I could think of considering it unusual. You're tricking me by saying it was unusual because I just took it for
It
granted. What
was
did we
well,
see?
it's not what you would expect, right?
Right.
And
I mean,
again
I'm
and
thinking,
again and again, Chris, I don't wanna milk this too
mm,
much.
it was that big ass cow, right? Wasn't it like some sort of cow on some sort of no, unless I'm thinking of Lemon Grove. I don't know, you got me, Jeff, because there used to be cows in Mission Valley. Everybody knows that, right? That was
Oh,
like a
well, there you
there
go.
was a
No, that no.
dairy. There
There,
was a
you did it.
dairy.
There you go.
Right,
That's what it
right.
was. You nailed it. I
It
like
was
how
like
you're
bec
just going, well, I mean, besides the dairy, Jeff, what was the
yeah,
thing you're talking about? No, that's what I'm talking about, man.
but
You just don't
and
expect that with everything being, built up
right.
now and gentrified, that there was a giant dairy. And by God, if you were in the back of the, Subaru Brat, right, in the bed, going, going, as we always say, going 70 miles an hour in the bed of the truck and bouncing around with no seatbelt, you might actually smell the cows, and
Yes.
that was back in the day before everything got. And then also, Chris, do you remember there was a giant mannequin on the side of the freeway
Mhm,
that was dressed
mhm,
up, and
mhm.
it was a woman in sort of like negligee, right, and like
Yes.
fishnet stockings, and it was just
Yes.
this like 20-foot, in my mind anyway, a 20-foot mannequin of this woman in stockings and sexy outfit, and I
Mhm.
don't know the name of it, but I think it was some kind of a strip club or
Yes.
dirty
Go-go
magazine,
place.
go go,
Yes,
whatever you're gonna go
yes.
get there, yeah. And it
Yeah,
was there for years and years and years. Now, it
yes.
probably was just a normal size mannequin, but in my mind, it was huge. Yeah.
Yes, because one time they would change it up periodically depending on the season or something, and
That's right,
what
yeah.
one time, Jeff, that it had a Batgirl costume on, and we lost our minds because for us and then that did not stay up very long, but yeah,
Wow.
exactly, and that little strip, and there was also and then again, speaking of restaurants, 'cause I just have to throw this one in, and again, I don't remember, it's like, there was also a German restaurant there called Kaiserhof, and now, again, disclaimer, don't wanna offend any I don't ever remember anybody say, "Hey, guys, you wanna go out and get some German food?" Nobody ev wasn't really on the pecking order of pizza, Mexican food, Chinese food, hamburgers, you know, German food. Didn't quite
Right.
make it to the top of the rotation, but,
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. So the Howard Johnson's, I guess, was actually overlooking the Kaiserhof as well.
We had a neighbor, speaking of, the '70s type of humor. This goes right along, the lines of everything we've been talking about earlier. One of his favorite jokes that he would tell again and again and again was, "Hey, man, I just went to that new German Chinese restaurant." Did you hear this joke, Chris?
Mm. I don't think I like where this is going, but let's hit it.
Pretty It's pretty good, but an hour later, I was hungry for war. Back then, right? And and let's talk about humor for just 1 second,
Mm,
because this was the
let's.
era of
Mhm.
Polak jokes, for
Oh,
God's sakes, where
Jesus.
it was this huge cultural thing that
Mhm.
somehow we had, or somebody had declared Polish people as being dumb. And so, you always heard Polak jokes. The Polak did this, the Polak did that. Nowadays, if you did a Polak joke, not that you should be doing a Polak joke, but people would be like, "What the F are you even talking about? What does this even mean? I don't
Mhm.
understand. What?" The only person that would ever understand a Polak joke is somebody from Gen X, right? Or
Right.
baby
Or
boomer, I
before.
guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And even then, they weren't good. Uh, the best Polak joke was a really stupid joke. Like, in my opinion, they even on the joke level, they weren't very funny. I didn't think. Maybe you did, Chris. I don't know.
I mean, one of the core tenets of racism, again, we're not supporting, we're not endorsing, is a stereotype, right? Is some sort of characterization about somebody being lazy or being a criminal or, having some sort of, loose morals of some sort. But yes, so the sin of being Polish was that you were not smart. So essentially every punchline was that, because they were too dumb to do it, figure it out, fix it, know what it meant, or they get the wrong yeah, so it was all just the same recycled it's like, maybe the fact that those jokes were so dumb and the fact that the punchline was always so dumb
The same, sorry, it's the same formula. How many Polacks does it take to dot, dot, dot?
yes,
Did you
right.
hear about the Polak who did
Who
this?
yes.
And
Why don't they have X in Poland? And it's because yeah.
they they would tell them on talk shows like it was no big deal, right? They would just openly tell Polak jokes. You could purchase 101 of the best Polak jokes, right? Right there at Kmart or
Yes!
Thrifties or whatever. Or in the library, "Hey, do you have any books on Pollock jokes?"
We also very much grew up with those Bugs Bunny cartoons where, especially the ones from the '40s, World War II was still going on, and they made a lot of comments and references and caricatures of Japanese people and Nazis. Um, S- Speedy Gonzales, si senor. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay, let's have this really fast. I don't even know what. Again, he spoke in this thick accent. He wore a sombrero, and it was just like, okay, yeah. It's like, I don't think you see, Speedy Gonzales was like, was getting endorsements. The Frito Bandito, for Christ's sakes. The Frito Band. Ay, 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 ay. I'm the Frito Bandito.
Yeah,
Okay. Good Lord.
right. Well, you could either, legally purchase Fritos or you can steal them, and apparently, this guy just thought, "Hey, man, they're sitting there. I'm just gonna grab them."
He's got his bullets, he's
Yeah.
got his sombrero. It's the same
Well,
thing.
Chris, he didn't need
And,
no stinking badge, right? So, yeah, that's the way we did it back then, I guess. It's
oh,
like, Quick
wow.
Draw McGraw and his Hispanic friend, Baba Louie, I think. Baba Booey. No,
Yes.
Baba Louie.
Baba Looey,
And,
yeah,
uh,
Baba
and he would
Looey
always refer
was
to him as, "Hey, Quistra. Oh, Quistra, si, senor." It was
yeah.
just this completely over the top, yeah,
Right.
stereotype,
He was
just
probably
nonstop, yeah.
he was probably a response. Hanna-Barbera said, "Hey, man, Warner Brothers has got Speedy Gonzales. We need our own ethnically insensitive character."
We talked about this in the last episode where somehow Eric Estrada, right, clearly Latino, had the name Poncherello.
Which isn't even a name! It's not even a name.
Poncherello, that sounds like a candy or
It's
or something, right? It sounds like what is Poncherello?
yeah,
Poncherello sounds
or a
like
drink,
yeah.
or a drink. It's just like, "You know what? We're making Poncherellos tonight."
No, Chris, you know
Ooh,
what it
ooh.
is? It's Poncherello sounds like a drink ingredient, you know?
Okay.
Heavy on the Poncherello. Yeah, that's it. So I've got, simple syrup, I've got curacao, and then we're gonna put a little bit of Poncherello in there, and then a fresh maraschino, little slice of lime, and you're good to go, buddy. I think as we look back, and again, to pull this way back to kind of the earlier part of the episode when we talked about A&W root beer, I think that is a classic example of old people wanting things to be like it was back in their day, right? So when you and I grew up and we had an A&W root beer, um, it was so cool because by God, Chris, what would happen, right? The people that worked there would come out to your car on roller skates, right?
Mhm,
And they would roller skate up to your car and you got to eat in your car, which was so cool. It was a lot like a drive-in movie, which
mhm.
by the way is a topic we haven't even talked about yet. I can't believe we'll have to
No.
get into that.
Yeah.
And you got to put the tray, right? You got to clip it on the outside of the window. And you got to, like, to your point, you had the beautiful, awesome root beer, the old timey
Mhm,
burgers and shakes and French fries and just the greatest food ever. But why did that place exist for so long? It's
mm,
because it was a throwback to the 50s, to something that was really popular 30, 40 years prior. And
mhm.
the old people still wanted it. By God, I don't want to live in a world where some dame doesn't skate up to my car. That's what I remember,
Mhm,
and I don't know. There's so many examples of that, right? I have a place called Richie's Diner just down the street from me, and it's a little bit of a chain. And it is, Chris, it is a 1950s diner from top to bottom, and the food is, 1950s, and you can get a sarsaparilla and a green river and a piece of pecan pie with your whatever. And Chris, every time that I go in there, I am
mhm.
not just the youngest person in there. I'm the youngest person in there by 20 years. It is just code red waiting to happen. I think the ambulance driver just eats there now because he knows if he leaves, he's got to just turn around. There's no point in even leaving. They
He's
just
got
have
his
him
own park.
permanently
Yeah.
stationed there. And these
And
people are living in a Twilight Zone time capsule that they just can't escape. And I just feel so bad for the wait staff. Chris, can you imagine trying to serve a packed restaurant of senior citizens crammed into booths with their I don't like it. It's not hot enough. You call this coffee? She said she wanted butter. It's not on the side. My
Mhm.
angina. I can't even fucking imagine what these poor women go through. What's my point? Old people are terrible. That's my point. And I don't want to become one, Chris. And I think someone maybe said, I hope I die before I get old. Well, by gosh, I don't want to become them, Chris. Please call me out if I ever do become the guy that's screaming for kids to get off my property.
Well, unfortunately, Jeff, you're talking about my generation, but, I think
Well done.
I don't know, you're absolutely right. I think there's this wistfulness for the old days. We're not looking at it through that lens yet. I think that's the difference, and give us another 15 or 20 years, and maybe we will.
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
think
Yeah.
and we're looking at it as lens of, like, the lens of, like, being parents. Older isn't necessary, they weren't always better, but, some of it was better, and some of it was kinda cool, and, going to dinner definitely was cool because it was a thing. It was almost like an event for whatever reasons. The reasons may not have been great, like you said, "Hey, we're giving mom the night off," but ultimately, you didn't care. "Yeah, dad. Yay, dad."
Well, yeah, and I guess, Chris, in closing, I will say that I think you nailed it. The difference between the personality type that I'm describing and what we do as we look back on the good old days is you and I are just calling it the days. I'm not even sure I'm saying the good old days. I have tons of fond memories, and obviously that's why we do the show, but we're really just sort of analyzing it, reflecting on it, and laughing at it for what it oftentimes really was versus what we kind of remember it to be in the fondness of our heart. And I think it's that whole picture that we're trying to do on this show versus what happens when your brain really becomes addled, right? And all you can remember is, I had it the best of anyone. I had a snappy car and a dame with good gams. And that's the way it was. And that's all they remember. And there was nothing bad back then. And it's just this weird, again, like I said, tunnel vision. But Chris, I'm looking forward to the next episode because now, at the very least, we have to dive into drive-in theaters and that entire experience. What do you think?
Looking forward to it as well, Jeff. So till until next time.
Until next time, Chris.
Nasty.